Hi, I'm Bill Powell, ceramic and glass artist. In this video I'll be covering the process of pedestals for crystalline glazes. It's part of my ongoing series of pro tips for potters videos, and if you like what you see, be sure to subscribe, ring the bell for further notifications in this series. So, time to move this baby. Okay, so crystalline glazes are a low clay content glaze. If you have more clay in the glaze is stiffer, more alumina, so you wouldn't get as much crystalline growth. And that's what we're looking for with crystalline glazes. So, by having less clay in the glaze, they run. Now, to deal with the running of the glaze, we make pedestals. This is the normal way of making a pedestal, with a tray to collect the glaze. It's all in one. I don't use this technique. I find this gets in the way of glazing and they're heavy and difficult. So what I do, I make separate rings. Separate rings that go under the pot, get attached to the pot. We'll cover that in a sec. And separate trays. Separate trays to collect the glaze. So it's a mix and match kind of system. And when you make your rings, you can make a whole bunch. And then you can mix and match. You can mix and match on the pot to make them fit. Now I'll go through that process of how to make the rings and the collection trays later in the video. So when you make that setup, they're quite bulky and they have to match each pot. This way you've got flexibility. So put that down. Now, the way I go about attaching them, by the way, this is the finished result with the glaze on the pot. That's yet to be detached. We'll go through that later. So, what I use to attach the ring to the base is a simple PVA glue. In Australia, we use, our PVA glue is called Aquadeer. It's a wood glue. I think in America the equivalent would be Elmer's school glue. This is a white glue that burns away in the kiln after it's fired. What I do is I also add alumina hydrate into the glue. The glue burns away and it's left with alumina hydrate, which allows the two clay bodies to separate. So, to attach the ring to the pot, you simply take your PVA glue, white glue with the alumina in it, run it around on the ring, make sure you cover the whole ring. Then we take our pot and we simply attach it, like so. You will get a little bit of overlap of the glue. Doesn't seem to be a problem, but try not to get too much glue flowing over. Make sure it lines up with the base of your pot. The neater the fit, the better the result. It dries very quickly on bisqueware, and soon I'll be able to turn this over and it'll stay attached. Okay, it moved then, so I'll just leave that upside down for a moment. Now, what happens here is the glaze will run down the ring and into your collection tray. This is to protect your shells from glaze running on them. No one wants glaze on their shells. Who likes grinding? So we sit these onto the trays. Once this is dried and doesn't move, I then do another step. Now, the second step is to create a clay gasket around the joint. When the glaze runs across the ring, it tends to want a capillary action into the gap between the two rings. You try and make your ring as tight a fit as you can, as flat to the foot, but I can even get away with a 1 mil gap with this technique. So I take very simple stoneware clay slip, nice and thick. This is the sort of thing you see, it's quite thick. And when this is dried, and is attached, I'll then run the clay around the join, and I'll show you that now. Now before I go any further, there's a couple of golden rules. The first one is always make the ring the same size, but if you're going to err on the size of smaller. If the ring is bigger, it creates a step where the glaze can build up on that, and that makes it difficult to separate. So make sure it's always exactly the same size, diameter, or slightly in the diameter. Also, make sure the ring is enough height compared to your tray. The last thing you want is for the glaze to run and then build up underneath onto the pot itself. So it should always stand up slightly higher than the rim here, if you're going to have a lot of glaze flow. If there's only a small amount of glaze that flows in, it's not a problem. But if it fills up, or your tray is too small for the job, which is usually the case, if you get the tray to fill up, then that glaze will build up around the actual pot and not the ring. You need a clear separation space. So, now we move on to this gasket effect, which works very, very well. The idea is to put slip around the join, push it into the join, and that way as the glaze flows past, it will flow straight past that gap between the ring and the pot. And all you'll be left with is a very small glass surface that taps the ring away easily, that allows you to tap the ring away easily. So, what I mean by this is, this is now firmly attached. We'll take the slip, any old slip. Don't use porcelain, it's way too sticky, way too fluxed. Just use any stoneware slip that handles the temperature. And no need to be have any finesse, just dab it around the join. Nice and thick, just dab it around the join. There we go. Quite simple. Just make sure there's enough on there to get across that join. Once you've gone right around the ring, I then take my fingers and just gently run them around, pushing it into the gap. Now, that looks really hideous and messy. But once you've done that, and you've driven the clay into that slight gap between the ring and the pot, we then take a sponge and some water and just gently wash it all away. Now sometimes it'll feel like you've washed it all away and why do I do it? But what you get left with is a raw clay gasket that seals the gap between the two. Now this is ideal because it allows the glaze to flow cleanly across the ring and down into the tray. It doesn't go in between the foot and the ring. Glaze going in between the foot and the ring is not a total disaster, but it can pull the foot away, take chunks out of the bottom of your pot. But with this method, it prevents that from happening. So we go around the pot, wiping it back, so all you get left with, and it'll seem like there's nothing there, but there will be clay in that gap. That seals that gap. We work our way around. The ring stays on quite firmly. If you go too early, you may knock the ring off. Just start again. Give it enough time to set on there. Almost finished here. Round we go. Now be sure to take the clay off the ring. If you leave thick clay on the ring thinking, oh, it's not a problem, it won't matter, it will sometimes dry and peel up and attach to your pot. Last thing you want. So just keep working your way around. And what you get left with is the ring attached with a gasket sealing between the pot and the ring. There we go. Take all the clay off the pot and the ring, and sometimes it'll look like there's nothing there and you think, why did I do it? But I tell you, it's there, it's there. And that little dark line, I'll do a close-up in here. And that prevents the glaze getting in and it allows the glaze to flow. Now, not having a tray attached is another bonus, because when you're glazing, if you're brushing or spraying, you simply glaze the whole thing. There's no tray there to get in the way. To get in here is very easy, and they just stay attached. And then when you load up into the kiln, once you've done your glazing, you simply find an appropriate tray and set it in the middle. This makes it very simple, very convenient. So you can have a bunch of trays, a bunch of rings, and just have flexibility. So the added bonus of no tray on the ring is glazing accessibility. Now, I've already pre-prepared this other piece with the ring attached and it's dried, and I'll just do a close-up of this process of putting the gasket on. Once again, we just grab our slip, dab it around. Nice and chunky. Be generous with the slip. It doesn't mean taking it off, but at least you know it's going to get into the gap. Run your fingers around, pressing it in, then sponge away. And you can see how it's leaving the clay in the gap between the foot and the ring. If you miss a spot, chuck some more slip on and then do it again. Another little tip when glazing, always glaze the whole foot, because if you don't, if you just glaze the pot, the glaze will find the quickest way off and it'll all run to that one dribble. And when you go to trim it or finish the bottom, there'll be one lump raised up of glaze. What you want is the whole ring glazed and the pot, and you can use the ring with your fingernail or a sharp object to test the thickness of the glaze without damaging the pot, and it'll all cascade off the pot in one go, and you'll be left with one small sharp ring of glaze that takes moments to clean. So that's the gasket method with the separate ring and tray. I swear by it. So this is how I'd go about making the rings that go underneath the pots. I'll be using a craft knife, a sharp craft knife to pare them off. And I'll throw a cylinder. You don't need a base. I'll make the cylinder slightly tapered, so I've got a range of sizes that I can choose from. Now I'm going to speed dry this with a flame torch. You can use a hot air gun or a hair dryer, but they'd be slower. I prefer to use my trusty flame torch. You'll start to see the sharp edge of the ring start to dry. That's a good sign. What we want is to be able to pick them off once we've cut them off and keep that round shape. First, I'll take the flat side of the knife, flatten the top, then I'll spin the wheel the other direction. Just makes it easier because I'm right-handed. I'll go down about 20 to 25 mil, that's a good size. Hold on the inside, connect your hands, run a line round, and then press the knife through. Just before it exits, you'll see the ring pop off, and there you've made the first ring. You can then flatten the top again and make another one. And so on. Now I'll show you how I go about making the trays to collect the glaze. I use standard bats that I throw all my pots on. I take the clay straight from the bag, or you could use recycled clay for this job. Just be sure to make sure that you have enough space around the ring to collect the glaze. When I make these trays, I lift the edges up with a rubber kidney, and I do plenty of compression. That way I don't need to cut them off. They'll just pop off when they dry. There you have my method of preparing pots for crystalline glazes. It goes a long way to alleviating the fear of the flow of the glaze, and it gives you the confidence to put enough glaze on to get great results. In my next video, I'll be processing the pots, showing you how to release them from the rings and the trays, and finishing the bottoms of the pieces. So if you like what you see, feel free to subscribe, hit the bell for further notifications in the Powell's Pro Tips for Potters series. Cheers.